Class 60 of the Golden Doves and Silver Dots. We're on page 24. Since the Logos functions as the laws of nature, it is very close to the Greek mind. I'm going to read that sentence. Since the Logos functions as the laws of nature, right? So we spoke about the Logos last time, and we said that's the memra, or the speech of God, right? So essentially, the speech of God, it's it has the same functionality as nature does today, because nature is what organizes the world and what governs how the world behaves. So that's exactly what the Yomer Elohim is, and here's the way God wants the world to run, and here's the way what God wants there to be in the world, right? So that's the logos. It functions as the laws of nature. It is very close to the Greek mind. So the Greek mind, so it's like, we refer to it to Mother Nature. You could have also said the mind, right? The mind of the world, right? So the Greeks have the idea of this mind that governs the world. Philo's preference for logos rather than for a term such as the soul or mind of the world as used by the sophists clearly indicates that he wanted a term semantically equivalent to the biblical dabar and imra. So here you see that Philo was not interested in Greek philosophy. If anything, he was trying to distance himself from the Greek philosophy, because for the Greeks, there's like a neshama, there's a nishmata to the world, right? So to the universe. And this neshama is part of the world, and it governs the world. We specifically reject that. We don't believe there's a neshama to the world, right? It's actually the opposite. We're going to be reading the Torah, Perashat Zot HaBeracha soon. Me'ona Elohe Kedem. Ma'on is the abode. So Elohe Kedem is the Me'ona. The previous pasuk in the Perashah said, Lochev Shamayim Be'ezrecha Ubra Avato Shehakim. So you have the huge cosmos. So Me'ona Elohe Kedem means, and this is not like Rashi explains it, he explains it differently. He says, as I recall, Rashi says that the Shamaim is the Me'ona. And I say no. We said, Ochev Shamaim be'ezrecha u'ga'avato shehakim. So, no. The Shamaim is not the Me'ona. Elohe Kedem is the Me'ona. Right? So God is the Ma'on in which the Shamaim and the Shehakim exist. So there's a vast universe, the entire cosmos. It exists somehow under the existence of God. I don't like saying within. We can say within, right, in a metaphoric sense, right? But when we say that the cosmos exists within God, so to speak, what we mean that, of course, metaphorically, because God doesn't exist in space, right? And there's no ontological relationship between God and the cosmos, right? But what we mean is that the universe exists at a lower hierarchical level than God. So the universe exists within God's existence. That perhaps is the best way to put it. So that's exact opposite of the Greek thinking, where the world, or modern thinking. So in Greek thinking, the world had a soul, right? So the soul of the world, right, is what governs the world. We say the exact opposite. Me'ona Elohim Kedem. And really the purpose of this class is because students in Tora, so I wanted to highlight that point. So let me just finish that sentence. All right. And also we see that Philo once used, and that's in line with the Torah, because of Yomer Elohim. So all these things are the speech of God. So the speech is under the speaker. The speaker completely controls the speech. Speech is volitional. A person speaks what he wants to speak. So God speaks what he wants to speak. So you see, God is not inside the world, or is not the soul of the world. but rather God's speech, which is under God, is what gives existence and continuity to the world. There are no a priori grounds to determine whether the universe is to be apprehended as a metaphysical or a semiological system. So what that means is that, at the theoretic level, as a purely deductive matter, there is no reason to prefer the universe as a metaphysical entity or as a semiological entity. Everybody today assumes scientists and all science and all Western thinking is predicated upon an assumption. But it's an assumption which is not a logical assumption. There is no logical reason to accept that assumption that the world is metaphysical, right? That there is an existence out there, that things just exist independent of us, independent of the observer, right? So there's these just independent objects, and there's no meaning to those objects. They just exist. They exist unto themselves, and whether we see them or don't see them, they're there, and there's nothing to interpret there, because they're just dead objects, or perhaps not dead objects. You say it's a semiological system, you say it's the speech of God, so everything in the universe are words. So you have to put the words together to generate meaning, right? So that's our view of the universe. Our view of the universe is Vayomer Elohim, the universe is the speech of God, right? But there's no reason to prefer, everybody just automatically knee-jerk reaction, oh, the universe is metaphysical, not semiological. Well, there's no reason for that. There's no a priori grounds for that. It is a matter of choice, right? So if a scientist decides that he wants to view the universe as metaphysical, it's his choice. He can do so. I can choose otherwise. It is a matter of choice which will determine the validity of one system over the other. Here, a metaphor may be helpful. Mashal. Suppose that an object exhibiting some marks reaches this planet. Okay, people have been talking about UFOs lately. So let's say this extraterrestrial object reaches a planet and it has markings on it. It could be examined ontologically or semiologically. You can say that the marks are meaningless. They're just there. Or you can try to read the marks. Maybe they have meaning. The marks may be considered fortuitous, like astrological configurations, the lines on the palm of the hand, or the stripes of a tiger. All those things are completely fortuitous. There is no meaning to the stripes of a tiger, right? The tiger is not trying to convey anything by showing us his stripes, or the fingers, right? The markings on a finger. You can look at it that way. In this case, these marks would be void of any signification. And then you're saying that there's nothing to read here, there's nothing to see here, move on. Any message that one must decode must be considered as pure fabrication. So it's a fabrication to try to decode those types of marks. So if a person looks in the coffee, some old superstitions of some of the previous generation, you look at the residue of the coffee and try to read things there. That's fortuitous, and that's a fabrication. The only way to understand it would be through scientific analysis. So what can you do? Try to analyze what the object is made of. What are the elements? What are the chemical compounds? Those marks got there, no doubt, because some sort of erosion, and create these scientific theories to try to explain what those marks are, right? Conversely, the marks may be perceived as signs, or you maybe say, wait, somebody wrote those marks. Could be, such as writing or mathematics. In this case, the scientific analysis is irrelevant to the message. And if indeed you decide that the marks are letters or words, and you try to read these letters or words, who cares whether it's, what the chemical composition of the mark is? The important thing is not the chemical composition. what is it saying? Just as the material on which the letter was inscribed and the ink and the instrument with which it was written are not relevant to decoding its meaning. Imagine your parents write you a letter and you start analyzing what color the ink is, what produced that particular color, how much erosion of the color took place over the course of time between when the letter was written and how the letter was received. That would be ludicrous. Similarly, if you take a semi-logical view of the world, well, we want to understand, what does the world mean?